When I spin the opposite way of what most people have learned is the correct way to spin. But why? When I spin an S-twist singles and a Z-twist ply, which is probably the opposite of what you have learned. The right way is to spin. That's like the little mnemonic to remember that you have to do a Z-twist singles. And I turned that on its head. I did that because I knit Eastern Uncrossed, which is a knitting style which uses actually kind of the same motions as crochet. And it is known that for crochet it is better to spin an S-twist singles and a Z-twist ply, because then the yarn doesn't unwind itself while crocheting, and I have taken that philosophy onto my knitting. However, I would not be me if I did not put that theory to the test. So that's what we're going to do today. I want to spin 2 yarns, one as I would spin it normally, and one as most of you would spin it normally. And then I'll knit swatches and see if actually there is any difference on my knitting or not. And from my stash I pulled this magenta and blue merino because I think if I spin both singles in these colors, it will be very clear to see what the plies do in the yarn, because we will have a very clear barb pole with these 2 colors. Yeah, you see, high contrast. That's what you want, because next to entertainment we're also doing a little bit of educational purposes for this video. I know, I always say I'm not a teacher. I still am not a teacher, but maybe we learn something from this together. Now, there is quite a bit of an oppressive atmosphere in the studio. It has been over 30 degrees the past couple of days, there have been thunderstorms, so we're moving outside because at least here is shade and a little bit of wind. I think there might also be another thunderstorm in the clouds, but for now, we're outside. Let's grab some lengths of fluff of equal sizes so that... Hey, yeah. Okay, so those will be the 2 singles of the 2 yarns in magenta and their 2 blue counterparts. And first, I'm just going to spin my usual way, which is an S-twist singles. This magenta fluff, by the way, is just regular merino. Something that, yeah, honestly, I would not use for any other project, and maybe for blending in a bat or something, but not something I plan to make an entire sweater out of. So it's a great candidate for educational purposes. When it comes to spinning different yarns for both knitting and crocheting, I have noticed that there are 2 schools of thought. Firstly, one that says, yes indeed, knitting and crochet need different yarns because they twist the yarn differently when working. There's also a second school of thought that says, no, because when you buy yarn in the store, there is no difference between knitting yarn and crocheting yarn. You just both buy the same thing, so why would hand-spun yarn have to be any different? And I can see the arguments for both schools of thought, so that's why I wanted to find out on my own if it really does make a difference or not. I don't know if you have any opinions or experiences actually with differences in yarn for knitting and crocheting. I brought us back inside because the wind was doing its job a little bit too well, and I think that would interfere with the microphone. YouTuber troubles. Anyway, we have our first yarn for this experiment, so the S-twist singles Z-plied. If you are not a spinner, however, and these terms completely confuse you, S-twist means that I spun the singles with a counterclockwise spin and then plied them with a clockwise spin. Now we are going to do the exact opposite. I'm going to spin a yarn where the singles are spun clockwise and then plied together counterclockwise. Talking about plying though, there has been a plying miracle. You saw me just eyeballing the amount of fluff that I was going to need for these yarns. This is all that there was left over of the blue after plying. A full 20 centimeters. I think that's a plying miracle. We love when stuff happens like that. And there we go, friends. Two, on first glance, identical looking yarns. However, they are, in fact, the complete opposite of one another. Do you spot it? Do you spot the difference that they are twisting in opposite directions? Like, this is why they are called Z-twist or S-twist. You can make the letter Z with this if you just add two horizontal lines. I'm going to let editing Yen to do a thing. And then here it's an S shape. But other than that, I think I was pretty spot on consistent in spinning these two yarns to be, you know, same thickness. I should get like a mathematical triangle to see the twist angle, but before I do that, let's just wet set these yarns to finish them and relax everything. And then we can get to, well, what actually is the more important part of this experiment, the knitting with it. Like, somehow the spinning feels like a prelude to all of it, but it was fun. And yeah, it's a fun barber pole yarn. I don't think this is a combination I would instinctively gravitate towards, but it's fun. It looks purple from a distance, but it is not. So let's put this in water. So now the deeds on my yarn. I'd say they are both fingering weight. However, I have run into a small problem. Both my spinning gauges are gauges without twist angle demarcations or anything, and I also could not find a geodriehoek or a gradenboog. I don't know how you say that in English, like, you know, the triangle or the arch that you use in math class. So I brought my cutting mat, you know, my A2 size cutting mat. No, A1, I think. A1 size cutting mat, because it's also like a really large geodriehoek. Why do I want to measure the twist angles? Well, maybe I should explain that before we dive into it. I want to knit 2 swatches, or 1.5 swatch, because I want to look at the difference in the finished swatches, what I knit with these yarns, but I also want to unravel a bit and then see if the motion of the Eastern Uncrossed knitting altered the twist angle. That's my plan. I'm going to measure these angles and then after I knit a swatch, unravel it and see if the angle has changed. So this is my Z-twist yarn. It aligns with this line, which is 30 degrees. I was confused. This was my S-twist yarn, I think. Oh my god. How do you write an S? Set. S is like this. Yes, it was the S-twist yarn. This is the Z-twist yarn. But if I like hold it this way, it does kind of line up with the 60 degree angle, which would then if we were able to lie it at the same direction. Also mean a 30-degree angle for this yarn, because I mean they do look like they have the same consistency and how much twist there is in them. I'd say they both have a 30-degree angle, so at that state it's time for the knitting and see whether or not that changes. Let's start making these swatches. I've started with the Z-twist yarn because somehow I am quicker at recognizing Z-twists, probably because I have watched quite a bit of Zorro in my time and I know how Don Diego de la Vega goes. But also, this is my regular yarn. I know how this will react when I knit with it in my regular way. So good, we have our little test swatch made with the yarn that ends with a Z-twist for the ply. This is the most serious swatch you have ever seen me make. Character development. I also made the second one. This is one that we will later unravel. This one is just garter stitch, while I did a garter border and then a stockinette square for this one. I don't think I have a lot of interesting to say about this square just right now, only that I will block it maybe so that it doesn't do this thing. I did say that this wasn't the color combination I would naturally gravitate towards to make like bigger projects, but it is pretty, isn't it? Very fancy form of TV static. Right now I've got both big swatches, like the ones that are going to stay as swatches and might serve a decorative purpose one day. I don't know. They're done. And then with the rest I also made these little ones, which will be unraveled later. And let's do a first little quick analysis of both the swatches. This is the one that I knit with the Z-plied yarn, so my regular yarn. This is the S-plied yarn. On first glance, they do look rather identical, but you can still see the S and Z twist in them because the stitches just lean towards a different side, or lean is maybe not the correct way, but the barber pole effect goes in this direction here, and over here it goes like this, which could be like a cool effect to play with in one piece. I don't know if this comes up on camera or that it is just TV static for you. I did film myself knitting very close up so that you could see that indeed my yarn did untwist itself a little bit when I was working with this yarn, especially during purl stitches. But in the resulting fabric, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. The only difference that I see from this, I will block it, but we're just looking at the unblocked swatches right now, is that this one feels a lot bigger. Even though they are the same amount of stitches, especially widthwise. Lengthwise I just went, I don't know, whatever, but widthwise they should be the same amount, and yeah. So it was the same needle that I worked on, but we do have a little bit slight difference of gauge. Maybe that's because, I don't know, it could be that I just knitted less tense, but also it could be that this yarn just became more tense and this yarn relaxed when knitting. Swatches be dry! What's happening with my voice? Small tip for getting lots of T-pins for rather not a lot of money is to go to an art store and find these ones to exhibit tapestries with. Like, you're better off than buying them at a craft store. I feel like after blocking, the size difference between these two is even more noticeable. Like, they are, as I said, the same size. They're both 26 stitches in width, and look at that. Does it actually differ in stitches per inch though? Let us check. That's 6.5 stitches for an inch. And 6, just 6. I was at first hesitant to call this an effect of the different twist in my yarn, but I read up on it a little bit, and I do think we can say that the gauge being tighter here, so with the Z twist ply, is an effect of it getting extra twist when I'm knitting with it, and this one being bigger by removing twist while I'm knitting with it. It's looser, it's less tight, evidently. You can see that. Now, let's unravel these two to do our final measurement and see if the twist angle has actually changed. This one is the one with S twist ply, and this is a Z twist ply. They are different sizes, it's easier to differentiate between. Also, a little fun thing, so with the knit stitches, my barber pulling goes this way, so it still makes an S, but here it's the Z way, and conversely for the other one. The purl stitches are opposite to their knit stitch effect. You know, just some information if you want to play with some fun color detailing, I think. I think that would be, I don't know how visible it will be, but, you know, ideas. This is probably also no professional way of doing this, like doing it on a cutting mat. By eye, still call that 30 actually. And then the S, the S. Oh no, that is not 30. Yeah, I would say that could easily pass off at a 15 almost, this specific bit. Yeah, this one really did lose a bit of twist. So I think we can say that we have found the answer to why I spin backwards, why I spin the opposite direction of what most spinning teachers will say that you should spin, even though frankly there is no right way of spinning. Yeah, so if I spin it my way, so the crochet way, I get a tighter, denser yarn. And when I spin my yarns the knitting way, or like Z first, S second, then I get a looser fabric, a yarn that slightly untwists itself when I'm working. So there is some wisdom in that school of thought that says to spin differently for knitting and crocheting, and I would add to that for knitting versus crocheting or Eastern knitting. And I have read somewhere that it's not just Eastern knitting, but that continental knitting also benefits from backwards yarn. Now, is it a dramatic effect? Like, if you are a crocheter but do spin the regular way, I don't think it matters all that much. Like, this was more an experiment to scratch an itch in my brain, to be like, but I know I have read about the effect, but does it happen to me? And yes, it does. It does happen to my yarn. Clearly, there is a difference in what yarn I would use. So I'm not going to change my ways, but maybe purely more out of habit. And neither should you, I think. Don't let this be a video to convince you to change your twist direction if you are happy with the yarns that you have, with the fabric that you achieve. I think that's the most important. If you are happy with the fabric you achieve, then you should change absolutely nothing. But this was just a fun little pseudo-scientific experiment on how my yarn behaves. And I hope that was interesting. Anyway, if you like these kind of fiber shenanigans, then maybe you could like, comment, or subscribe. But of course, that is all up to you. And as for me, I will see you in a next video. But before we do that, maybe you could look at some more spinning shenanigans. Bye!